I have this awful sneaking suspicion that Portland gets a win against Orlando and ruins their perfect season in this chaotic league. I don't know why. Obviously nothing suggests that. It's just like a weird, like literally nothing suggests that. It's like a weird gut feeling. Hello, and welcome to Expected Own Goals, Orlando. Perfect no longer. And I just felt like that was coming edition. I'm your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. Man, I don't know where to begin. We had two pieces of breaking news that came in across the transom just before we started recording. We've got a bunch of results in leading up to our featured game that are hilarious. And our featured game actually didn't really move the needle at all in terms of playoff placement or playoff odds or anything like that. So where do we start? Where do you want to jump in here?
Well, I want to start with a record that was actually set this weekend.
Okay.
Temwa Chewinga grabbing, Orlando couldn't keep its perfect season, but Temwa Chewinga did, just under the wire, eclipse Sam Kerr's no asterisks needed all-time NWSL single-season goal-scoring record.
She said, fuck your asterisk.
And she did it with a goddamn screamer.
What's crazy is I think I figured out that it's either the lowest or the second lowest XG goal that she's scored all season.
Oh, no doubt. But also, this is where, sometimes an individual shot, you just get it in stride, you get it in the right location, the ball sits up nicely for you, and you just wallop it.
Oh, yeah.
This is where, an individual player's assessment of what is around matters, and, knowing the XG of your shooting location, which also matters, can be a little bit ignored if you hit it like this, if you've got that time and space. And, wow. I just want to take a moment and credit Temwa Chewinga for the icing on her MVP as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, she's the best. Somebody on attacking third, they were arguing about who should be the MVP, and one of them just refused to even consider Chewinga as an MVP. And
what?
Yeah, I know. I mean, that show goes off. I have so many videos bookmarked of their takes that are about to go freezing cold in a week or two.
Take.
Yeah. It's absurd. Listen, Chewinga is not somebody that I necessarily think about as a great finisher in the way that you might think about Lynn Williams or Sophia Smith. You think about Temwa Chewinga as just taking shots from incredible chances, great spots on the
finishing's not that real,
right? But she apparently has something in her locker where she can run into one.
Yeah,
it was cool.
My God. It was a reversion to Bay's old self. It was a bad giveaway in the midfield that led to that goal.
Yeah. And they were missing pieces. I mean, Bay did not have their front line, their first choice pieces because Rachel Kundinanji couldn't play, Tess Bodie couldn't play. So they were playing a little shorthanded. That speaks to one of Bay's primary problems, which we highlighted before the season, was that their depth could potentially get tested. And Montoya found his preferred midfield, and then he couldn't run it out, and they got exposed.
I mean, credit to Temwa here. No, let's go down the list before we start breaking down the games before we do the whip around. Let's, or maybe we'll count the whip around. We're going to sort of do the whip around in a non-conventional way, and we'll catch the games that don't also have a weird storyline associated.
Sure.
So before we get there,
yeah,
let's start with Boss Nation FC.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the Boston NWSL expansion team now has a name. Yeah, I'm putting that in quotes.
Before we hopped on the record, I saw it on our spreadsheet breakdown, and I thought, oh no.
What is this?
And then Evan confirmed for me off air to be very concerned and sent me to toomanyballs.com, which by the time you're listening to this, probably will have something on it. But right now it's just a countdown to the worst NWSL franchise crest announcement I've ever seen.
Boss Nation Football Club might be the worst sports franchise name I have ever heard.
I hate it more than Magic Jack.
And that is saying something.
That is really saying something. I hate it more than Magic Jack. And Magic Jack was a product placement, not a team. Like,
yeah,
that was nuts.
The Lakers and the Jazz, whose names make absolutely no sense relative to where their teams exist now, at least have some historical connection to those names, from the Jazz being in New Orleans and the Lakers being in Minneapolis. Boss Nation, like, do you want me to just think about, I don't know, I mean, what comes... This sounds like a failing shoe company or something.
What are other possibilities for Boss Nation? A bad cologne?
A middle-of-the-road hip-hop label?
Yeah, oh yeah, white hip-hop artist label, for sure. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's getting way too clever here. Angel City was stretching it by calling themselves Angel City. But Boss Nation, just call yourself Boston.
We were already getting a sense that this ownership group didn't have their eye on the ball because their stadium plans are basically denying parking to people who want to come to games, and the people who live in the neighborhood where their stadium is are getting pretty upset with the lack of care or interest that the ownership seems to be putting into managing an influx of potentially 10, 12,000 people 13, 14 days a year will bring. And now they are rolling out a website called a women's soccer team is going to have a website attached to it called TooManyBalls.com to talk about how their team is now called Boss Nation Football Club. Like, this feels like a bad joke from like the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah. Look, I'm not the target audience. I don't like New England sports per se. Holy hell.
I'd love to hear somebody who is the target audience what they think of this.
Yeah, I want to know what the target audience that feels like Boss Nation really got them.
Yeah, what do Boston soccer fans really think? I can't imagine it's anything good.
Even if they just called it Boston Nation FC, I'd be like, bad name, fine.
Yeah. Like, it has absolutely no connection to the city, no connection to like the heritage. Every Boston sports team wants to make you think of like their involvement in the American Revolution or how they have a lot of Irish people there. But this is just nonsense.
I don't know. The Bruins are just a bear. You just need to not get it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think so many teams forget that.
It's true.
Like San Diego Wave FC is not a great name, but it didn't get it wrong.
Yeah. Right.
North Carolina Courage, not a good name.
Yeah.
But it didn't get it so wrong.
Yeah. 1,000%. But I'm also not sure anyone's ever gotten a name more wrong than this.
No, this is the worst.
A lot of MLS 1.0 names weren't as bad as this.
No. Oh my God. The Dallas Burn, which sounded like, a sexual problem you pick up in Dallas. Like, Boss Nation FC is worse than that.
Yeah.
Like, I just,
Yeah.
I'm in a Tampa Bay mutiny on this name. If we're gonna go back in the day, no, I think I just have nothing. Let's move on.
Yeah.
This is the perfect segue to talking about Angel City, another team that broke at the Karen Nortman connection, who appears to be the binding agent between bad naming of franchises. No, Angel City is actually fine. I thought it was moderately inspired even.
Yeah.
What wasn't inspired is Angel City's 1-1 draw. But before we get there, let's talk about Angel City's less than inspired 11-day late response to their points deduction.
They released a statement on Monday afternoon, and I'm not going to read every single word of it here, but give you the general tone of it, which is, we respect the league's authority, we acknowledge our mistakes and take full accountability, but also none of this is our fault. I think is how it boils down.
I would add, also, we care about children more than every other franchise in this
and
league.
Women, yeah.
And women.
They tried to claim that the reason there was this salary cap overage for about a month at some point this season is because the payments that Angel City makes toward childcare support, it did not count against the salary cap. Now, if you go back and read the CBA, not the new one, the old one, and at the time of these violations, the previous CBA would have been the one that was being enforced. It is quite clear that childcare payments must be included in the standard player agreement. Ergo, it counts toward the salary cap. And if you did not know that or were confused by that, guess what? The league has a compliance officer that you can speak to about what is and is not allowed regarding salary cap issues. And so the fact that you did not report this and you also took 11 days to respond to the suspension, the fines, and the points deduction means you are trying to find a way to make yourself a victim. And to claim that you, quote, are trying to support players' childcare needs and that childcare support is fundamental in advancing the professionalization of women's sports and ensuring that our players feel valued and supported as both professionals and parents. Everybody agrees with that. That's why childcare is in the CBA.
Yeah.
You know, like you did an end run. And somebody also brought up that like, all of this is pertaining from contracts for 2023, specifically with 5 players with whom you made side deals. I can't think of 5 players for whom childcare was a requirement in 2023. I might be forgetting some people, but I'm racking my brains beyond Sarah Gordon. Like, I think the list is fairly short.
Sydney
Leroux, but that's 2, not 5. So this all feels a little strange, and it does not actually clear anything up. In fact, it only obfuscates. It's a non-apology apology. And to try and act as though like you are breaking an unjust rule for the betterment of your player population is very dissembling.
If I am in the NWSL's offices right now, I'm double checking all of this, and I would be considering a greater fine for this kind of counter statement. Because what Angel City is effectively saying is like, we don't respect your authority, we don't take accountability, and we're actually claiming that the league in general is anti-child care.
Yeah, I think they would probably...
And like,
yeah.
I would be considering additional fines if they don't have a point.
I think they would probably try and argue that they've couched their language enough to say, well, we respect your authority. We attempted to reverse the points deduction. You did not want to do that, and we accept that. So I think that would probably, that's their...
Yeah. I just mean that like the league does not come off looking good in this statement. And this statement is only self-serving as far as Angel City is concerned. And I think that this is a very public appeal, and there has to be an appeals process that doesn't involve this. Also,
you guys have a history of doing this. Like the first time you got fined for violating roster rules back in 2021 for tampering with Ali Long, maybe that would have been a signal to you to hire somebody to handle all of the compliance issues that come with a very complex collection of salary and roster regulations. But you clearly didn't do that. Or if you did it, you chose to ignore their advice and just pushed ahead anyway. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for Angel City here.
No, it's nonsense. And what was also nonsense was how they dropped points again, this time against North Carolina on the road. Angel City, who have been, in my estimation, performing reasonably well in spite of all of the hullabaloo surrounding off-the-field matters.
Yeah.
Have been putting together like a string of reasonable results in what would be a playoff chase were they not deducted 3 points.
Yeah, they'd have 26 points without the points deduction. So, right now the playoff line is, 28 points? 29?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that would have kept them in the hunt in the final 2 weeks of the season. But now, Trevor Larner ran his ELO model and their playoff odds sit at 2%.
Yeah, and it would be considerably higher. But also, Angel City have dropped, 20 points from winning position?
It's 18 points. That being said, second place is Louisville with 15 points. So they are still comfortably in the lead. And what's interesting is there's not a lot of stickiness when it comes to drop points. Just because if you drop a lot of points in the season doesn't mean you're bad or you're less likely to win the trophy over anybody else. For example, Kansas City is 5th on this list with 12 drop points. I don't think Kansas City is going to have a lot of problems, at least until the semifinals. And last year, Portland and North Carolina tied for first in drop points with 13 each, and they were both playoff teams. So there's not necessarily, it's not 1-to-1. If you drop a lot of points, you're going to,
Caveat to this, of course, is you have to have a lead to drop
exactly.
points.
And so
and if you're the kind of team that gets a lead, you're probably pretty good, typically.
Right. And so at the bottom of the list, Washington and Utah. Utah is bad. Washington is not. Washington, when they get a lead, just don't drop a lot of points. Utah very rarely get a lead in the first place, so it's hard for them to drop points at all. So yeah, it's fairly noisy, these kinds of numbers, but they are interesting. What I love about Angel City, however, is they're top of the list this year. Last year, they're tied for third with 12 dropped points. 2022, tied for third again with 12. If you add up the last 3 seasons, they have dropped 42 points. Do you want to know how many points second place North Carolina have dropped? 33.
Oh, God.
It's a 9-point gap. And North Carolina hasn't dropped many points at all this year. So they're part of that sort of noisy fluctuation of sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. Portland, 30 drop points over the last 3 seasons. They're in third place. Again, it's because they often have leads and maybe they give up, they drop a couple of points because a win becomes a draw. Doesn't necessarily mean much. But Angel City, with 42 drop points over the last 3 seasons, is really something. And also, if you split it up between Freya Coombs' tenure and Becky Tweed's tenure, there's no daylight.
Oh my God.
As a percentage of all available points when they were each head coaches, it's the same. So this team has just been the same version of itself from the very beginning, because I think there are times when you and I have been sitting inside BMO Stadium watching a game, and then everybody's just oh, this always happens. They always give up a late goal. A win's always becoming a draw. A draw is always becoming a loss. And there's that part of me that thinks, is that really true? Or are we just amplifying the bad feelings of the most obvious bad moments, which is when you drop a result? But then it turns out, no, it's actually real.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's just because there isn't stickiness in these numbers doesn't mean it doesn't suck to experience as a fan.
Yeah.
And so if you are an Angel City supporter, you are not misperceiving the fact that your team does disproportionately drop points.
And if you look at their goals added differential, their G+ differential per 96 minutes, only looking at that for the minutes where they are ahead or they're drawing, Angel City since 2022 plays the second worst of any team when they have a lead or when the score is level. And that pretty much tracks if you look at every single individual season going back to 2022. They are a genuinely bad team when they have a result on the line.
I mean, I think it's not even when they have a result on the line. It's just they've been, over the course of their history, a pretty bad team.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It felt great for about 2.5 minutes living in the afterglow of Kristen Press's cathartic goal.
Yeah.
And then Angel City conceded the biggest chance of the game to Olivia Wingate.
Yeah.
Not even a question, the biggest chance of the game.
Yeah. I mean, somebody said recently that even if it's extremely unlikely that Angel City will make the playoffs, at least we have to talk about them as a team who's still in the playoff hunt simply because they haven't been mathematically eliminated. But to look at Becky Tweed's face after final whistle, a person who was so distraught and devastated by what had just occurred that the coach who just beat her, Sean Nahas, had to come over and console her, suggests to me that this team is truly, truly gone. And our post-match press conference sounded pretty standard boilerplate. Like, we really need to not, we have to, be mindful of allowing that ball in behind. We need to be able to control space better. It's something to learn from. It's something to work on. And all I could think of was like, Becky, you are disassociating because you are saying things that would make sense in like week 4, not week 24. And based on like some of the things you said last week, like a positive we can take away from this game is that we're our own worst enemy, lends further credence to the fact that you might be disassociating a little bit right now. And plus, then you throw in all the off the field stuff. Like, it's a fucking mess over at Angel City right now. Even though, in general, the performances have been pretty good since the Olympics break.
Not that the Angel City haven't like deserved kind of the results they've gotten under her. It just sucks to be in her position. Like, it's heartbreaking to be chasing a playoff spot and to lose games the way they've lost them, or in this case, drawn them where a draw feels like a loss. And it sucks to have things outside your control absolutely wreaking havoc on your ability to manage a team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just, from a human to human standpoint, Becky Tweed is having about as bad a run of it as you can have in a job. And she probably will lose her job. And there's some acknowledgement, I think, on her part in her reaction that that's going to happen. And that's no fun.
Yeah, we've criticized Tweed in the past, but I think what is true is that I don't think she's any better or worse than anyone else as a head coach. I think she is a pretty middle of the road, average, mediocre head coach. Which, by the way, the spread of talent from great head coach to bad head coach is pretty small, smaller than a lot of people want to think. And I don't know if Angel City would have been any better with somebody else at the helm this year. But then again, they probably wouldn't have been much worse.
It sucks to be in that position. And this has been a very joyless Angel City season. And to be at the head of that and to know you don't have support and to just sort of to have, the late night massacre trades and, it just hasn't been until like lose key pieces like June Endo for the entire season. It just sucks. And like
to lose 3 points for things that had nothing to do with you.
Speaking of coaches that don't suck, Seb Hines and his Orlando Pride finally lost a game. And it took them rotating their 5 best players out of the team.
Boy, you called it. And that's the thing. Seb Hines chose prioritizing rest over mitigating rust. And in tandem with the fact that they had to get out of Dodge very quickly because Hurricane Milton was barreling down on Florida, and that they had secured the shield, and they had to fly all the way across the country. I cannot blame him for wanting to prioritize rest. But it was a side that has not really played together a whole lot, and it looked like it. And Portland took advantage and got a little bit of wind in their sails, and they deservedly got the 3 points.
In retrospect, I should have thought this through more. This is the right game if you're Seb Hines to give your starters rest. This is the second longest geographical distance between two teams, second longest travel day that you can have.
Is it San Diego to New Jersey? Is that the longest?
No. Seattle to Orlando. It just a slightly further trip.
Yep. Right. Yep.
This is the second furthest geographical road trip you can take.
Mm-hmm.
You are playing your remaining games a lot closer to home. You've got Red Bull Arena, and then you're at home for the final day of the season. You want to get your team some rest, but you also want to prioritize getting good reps in. And so doing that 3 weeks out and taking the luxury of like, okay, this is the game that we just run some other less tired legs out there.
Yeah.
Huge. And maybe we'll get a result against a Portland team that really can't do anything right now. And it just kind of didn't break their way.
But they don't care.
Yeah. And they don't care because ultimately the perfect season is interesting, but it's meaningless toward the greater goal.
And Portland's, according to the Larner ELO model, Portland's playoff odds are 100%. And for people who want to say how ridiculous that is because Portland are so bad and they are like going to collapse and fall apart and, blah, blah, blah. This league is crazy. Anything can happen. Like, yeah, sure. But Trevor ran the ELO model for me for this point in the season last year, like with 2 games to go. And like, there are multiple teams like between 40 and 70% hovering just above and below the playoff line. It was a much tighter spread where you could say some weird thing's going to happen in the final couple of weeks to get you into the playoffs. And it did. This year, I think, is different. And with the way that Louisville acquitted themselves, and we'll talk about them in a second, I don't feel super concerned that Portland, at the very least, can't get at least 1 point on the road to Louisville next week.
It's not even that.
And if they do,
it's the goal differential now as well.
Yeah,
like
that's the other part. Yeah, of course. No, but that's what I mean. Like now, the reason it says 100% is because of all of these factors. They have enough points on the board relative to their counterparts that they're in the driver's seat, plus the goal differential. So if there is a tie, the tie will go to them on points. And the remaining schedule that they have is not the most unfavorable schedule when you look at Louisville, Utah, and San Diego. So it just, by virtue of the circumstances as they are in this very moment, Portland seems very, very assured to get into the playoffs. They'll get their ass kicked in the quarterfinals, but they are very, very assured to be in the playoffs.
Portland got a gift in who they got to play against Orlando, and then they caught some breaks in the game. Arena Reyes header back across the box to Morgan Weaver, who is continuing to produce at a really high level in spite of Portland's general anemia on offense. Morgan Weaver finds herself in the right place at the right time to left foot home past Anna Morehouse on a redirected ball in a corner, set piece play, excellently executed. And then Portland just kind of ease the game and rely on, finally, Christine Sinclair rolling back the ears and snapping one from the top of the box. And from there, Orlando really doesn't try to overexert themselves. They get minutes in. We see Adriana, we see Barbara Banda, we see Marta coming off the bench.
Yeah, and there just was not a lot of soccer played in the second half.
Yeah, honestly. That's right.
So, yeah, I think Portland can feel quite comfortable. I mean, this was the most difficult game that they had. Now they get to play Louisville on the road, who look really bad right now, and they get to play Angel City and Providence Park on the final day, who also have a bunch of shit that they're dealing with. So Portland probably just needs a point to really secure their position.
That's right.
So do you want to talk about Washington, Louisville?
Yeah, that's the natural place to go after this. And
Louisville, I think Louisville's fucked.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, look, Washington is a good team. This was true on the day, but Louisville looked dead rubber against them. I mean, and this is a beleaguered Washington team.
This is the thing. Washington rolled out a starting 11 that lacked Uli Matassar, Croy Bethune, Trinity Rodman, and Lacey Santos. And they still put the sword to them.
Yeah, they put up 3 XG on them.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of that is okay. Ashley Hatch's penalty.
But also a lot of that is, McKenna Morris's second goal, which is a tap in on an empty net.
I know, it's crazy.
A lot of that's McKenna Morris's first goal, which is a Katie Lund howler.
We talked about last week how Louisville's back line is really clearly the liability here. But some of the choices that Yanez made were a little perplexing. Like, she moved Ellie Jean into central defense with Abby Ursig, and they haven't played much central defense together, at least not in a while. And Courtney Peterson was your big defensive trade. So what's she doing on the bench because she doesn't appear to be injured? Once again, you see Sears and you bring in Kayla Fisher. That never goes well. And in the interest of trying to slow down the relentlessness of Washington's attack in the midfield, you have DeGrande, Borges, and Taylor Flint all on the pitch at the same time, and it looked disjointed.
Yep.
And I understand why maybe you think that Savannah DeMello is no longer a nailed-in starter. She's not had a good season, but that requires Bethany Balcer to double as both a hold-up player and also someone who can like pull strings, and that's not where Balcer is most useful. And oh, by the way, the best thing to use Balcer for is what she did, which is score or put up an excellent chance off of a header at the beginning of the second half.
Yeah.
So
Score
this was a messy, I think, kind of foolish set of lineup decisions. And yeah, Lund blows it for that one goal
for the opener. Yeah, but also,
but like
these things happen.
These things happen. It's just that the back line has looked a real disjointed mess, and Carson Pickett isn't there anymore. For whatever reason, you don't want to play Courtney Peterson. And then you're reverting to bad habits with your attacking unit. So Louisville kind of deserved it. And if they're in like tinker, if Giannis is in like tinker mode right now with a playoff berth on the line and 2 games to go, I don't have a lot of faith that they can somehow overcome the hurdle of the points gap and hope that Portland loses their final 2 games. Just doesn't feel realistic to me.
Yeah, I mean, they need to beat Portland this weekend to have anything, to have any sort of chance. The playoffs are, and frankly, they're not going to catch Portland. It's really about catching Bay at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, Louisville's statistical profile, when we were talking about who is going to grab these final playoff spots, looked better than it does now. And this team has just sort of faded the wrong way down the stretch.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
Because it's, Louisville does a lot of things that we really like as a franchise, generally speaking, in terms of personnel, player acquisition. But this just isn't, in a year where the Red Stars play like the Red Stars to the XG table, yeah, Louisville's in this with a shout. But again, it's for the 8th playoff spot. This just isn't a great Louisville team. And they aren't putting in the performances that matter. Now we come to the point where we're talking about only teams not making the playoffs.
I want to mention San Diego Houston first, because Houston managed to snatch back some of the bad luck they had against Chicago and win a very comfortable 2-0 against San Diego. But under the hood, it's a deep expression of San Diego's absolutely rotten luck of late in terms of results. Like, this is now the second game in a month that they have won the XG battle handily and lost the game.
The non-penalty XG battle, because they do give up a penalty, but yes.
On non-penalty XG, this is the second time they've won handily on that score and still ended up coming away with no points. And that's brutal. And it's happening at the exact wrong time. You can't expect to survive when you still have this horrendously unlucky streak going on. I don't know what to say. McDonovan didn't do himself any favors. I don't know why Delphine Cascarino was on the bench.
It could just be minutes, exhaustion. She's had a big year. They're not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would have to, at least as a head coach, consider that as long as you're not mathematically eliminated, you at least have to go for it. And Cascarino is your big summer signing. So why is Mackenzie Doniak and Maya Jones, why are they on the field?
Just not it's a dead rubber match. And then the Seattle Reign, who I think stopped playing soccer a few weeks ago.
Yeah, completely.
That is as lopsided an XG battle as you'll see this year.
To a Utah Royals team who is certainly better under Jimmy Cohnraitz than they were before, but I'm sorry to say it, is still not a good team. I mean, like their points gap is such that even with this little surge in form, they have to play Gotham on the final day. Like, that's not changing. And they have to beat Angel City on the road and beat Gotham at home, and then have everybody above them drop all 6 points.
Yeah, what does the ELO model say for their playoff odds?
1%.
Which is better than it has been.
It's just such a hill. It's just such a hill to climb. I mean, it's exciting. It certainly bodes well for next year. I mean, Chloe Lacasse going out and scoring a hat trick in the first half is fucking cool. Like, it seems very obvious that they did good business in the summer window getting those three pieces who have all contributed at one point or another in the last 8 games. But, you know, the hole was just too big to dig themselves out of. So, as we have said a few times, just be excited about 2025.
I think that, you know, I'll give Utah a chance if every team they play on the way out has an Ankara James who's willing to take a red card on 2 yellows in the first 16 minutes of a game. If they can play their remaining fixtures for about 75 minutes up a person, maybe it could happen.
Yeah.
No, credit to Chloe Lacasse for first hat trick in Utah Royals history. And talk about a team that didn't have to keep playing hard and has shown us some stuff. All right, let's get to the meat, which isn't that meaty. Our game of the week.
A lot less meaty than we expected it to be.
Yeah. Gotham on the road to Chicago 2-0. And for the first 80-something minutes of this game, I kept thinking to myself, Chicago just can't keep getting away with this. They just can't keep getting away with this.
I know. And still, they ended up getting away with it because of results. They clinched a playoff berth this weekend despite losing quite handily.
Frankly, Chicago created almost nothing. Full stop.
Yeah.
On attack.
Yeah.
And just invited pressure the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
They were lucky to not be down in the first 10 minutes on a Lynn Williams chance. Then they played, as far as they have played, decent shell defensive football after that chance. And Gotham...
To some extent. I mean, Esther had a couple of pretty good looks in the first half, too.
Totally. But what I mean is, against what they have been doing, where they've been conceding 3 XG on the reg.
Right.
In this game, after the Williams chance, you know, they're conceding like limited non-penalty XG from there out. Like, once they get away with one, they're still giving away good chances. That is who Chicago is.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond the Mal Swanson post rattler in the 60th minute, which is a transitional chance, they created nothing, and would have gotten away with it too
if it weren't for you meddling Gothamites.
But for VAR stepping in and identifying a clean penalty. A penalty that still saw Juan Carlos Amoros sent off with a red card at the same time. Pretty funny.
Yeah. It's like, dude, just give it a beat because the VAR might give you the decision you want. Couldn't contain himself.
Yeah, Evan, what did you see from this game?
I saw Chicago. Okay. So after Chicago clinched, thanks to Louisville losing, I think it was Louisville's loss that confirmed it. Maybe in Bay, I don't remember how it all shook out. Maybe Bay and Louisville both had to lose in order for the math to work. But I saw a sentiment sort of going around about how great this team is in terms of its mentality and how it's like always ready to like fight and, you know, never back down and grit through it, and that they have such great mental toughness and great mental fortitude. And when their backs are up against the wall, they will pull it out. And, you know, like Kerry Recaro made some comment in the press about how like the reason that they've been so successful is because everybody sticks together and that there's great, for lack of a better phrase, unit cohesion in the team. And I'm calling bullshit, because what team doesn't have those things that have been successful this year? Like, do you really think you have more unit cohesion or you have greater mental toughness than Kansas City or Orlando or Washington? I first of all, how could you even measure that with the tools that we have available to us? And how could you even prove that it was the thing that predicts successful results? And by the way, you're bad. You suck. You fucking suck, dude. Like, the 2024 Chicago Red Stars fucking suck, and they're getting away with it. Like,
I don't think I'm not going to go that far, but I'm going
to go that far. Fuck it. Yeah. Like, I am no longer interested in trying to figure out how Lauren Ball has cracked the code, or that somehow that they are able to sustain this low volume, high efficiency offense that they keep rolling out, which, by the way, the XG per shot, 0.13 to 0.13, even though they only took two fucking shots all game. I'm done. I'm fucking done, because they have been so inept and pathetic in so many areas of the pitch. And don't fucking laugh. This is real. They fucking suck. Like, they are going to be one of the worst teams to make the playoffs in league history.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. Like, that's not a joke. Like, I am sorting non-penalty XG differential per game going back to 2016. And let's see, Chicago 2024, they were the 9th worst team by XG differential per game in league history since 2016. Every single team that has been worse than them, guess what? Didn't make the playoffs. They fucking suck. And I think whatever we're describing as Lauren Ball that turns into success is luck. I think they have such an incredible human being in Mallory Swanson, who, if you can win the ball and get the ball to her, she can turn transitions into really high XG value chances for her teammates, whether it's Penelope Hocking, Jamise Joseph, or Ludmila. But she can do it maybe once or twice a game. And guess what? Once you get to the playoffs, once you face Gotham again, or maybe Orlando or Washington or wherever you end up in the final table, you are going to get steamrolled. You are going to get your ass kicked because you're pathetic. You're fucking pathetic, and I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of people saying that this is somehow this great team that's unlocked something. They haven't. They're lucky. They're fucking lucky. I am so out of my fucking skull. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me what they're doing that is both good and sustainable.
Dear listeners, you've just officially witnessed one of the two members of this podcast team defeated by broken by the Chicago Red Stars. And you know what? He's not wrong on the numbers thing, but it is baffling. I mean, like, we can just run down some of in this match, 39 touches in the box for Gotham, 4 for Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
A field tilt, 84-16.
Yep.
I'm not here to say that Chicago's been anything other than a baffling team. But what they are is a statistical outlier that should they perform at this level next season in the exact same way, I will say with some confidence I expect them to not make the playoffs. They are going to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs. Hell, they clinched on a game where they recorded 0.3 XG at home. But for VAR, this could have been a 0-0. They stand an outside chance per any reasonable model. They stand less than a Russian roulette chance of just soccering whoever they face in the playoffs. And it will break Evan more than it has broken him today. If somehow Chicago upsets one of the top 4 in this league.
By the way, I'm not saying that couldn't happen, because
it definitely could happen.
The playoffs are completely random. So yeah,
exactly.
maybe they get lucky and they play Gotham to a 0-0 in the quarterfinals and they go through on penalties. That could happen. You know, maybe they face Orlando in the semifinals and they squeak by on like a 1-0 thanks to an extra time piece of magic from Swanson and Ludmila combining. That could happen. And maybe they play Washington or Kansas City in the final and Swanson and Jamise Joseph just lock in, and Swanson's cross to Joseph's head is perfect. And they survive an onslaught the way that they did against both Houston and San Diego recently. And all of a sudden they're holding the title. That could happen. That doesn't negate the fact that they fucking suck. Winning a title, it does not mean you're a good team. That's the thing that nobody can ever wrap their heads around in any sport. That because of the way that the playoff system works, especially in the NWSL, Major League Baseball, and any sport where there's just such an incredible amount of variance in a short sample, like you see this less in like the NBA and the WNBA because of just like how a single player can take over a game. That can't happen in baseball and soccer. Yada 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 yada. Everybody just assumes, sorry, Eric, the 2015 Royals weren't the best big team in baseball in 2015.
I have never argued that they were.
Yeah. Like, sometimes you just have a good couple of weeks, and it could still happen to Chicago. They could win or advance for 3 straight games in November, and they could end up holding the title. But that doesn't mean they're not one of the worst teams in the history of this league. They're fucking terrible.
I have been wondering if we would ever have a moment on the pod where somebody says something iconic enough to match Jonathan Wilson's goals are overrated. And Evan,
I don't know if that quite rises to it, but
Evan just, it's not as clean, but winning a title doesn't mean you don't suck.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why people talk about like the shield mattering.
So funny. Because by a lot of the criteria we look at, and that stuff is really related to sustainably building an excellent team and what pieces get you value at the margins and sometimes not at the margins, just like get you value. By those terms, Chicago is a not good team who continue to get away with their not goodness and have played themselves into a position where their not goodness might not matter that much.
Sure.
And that could win them a title.
Sure.
And for all of you Red Star fan listeners, I hope you are laughing your ass off at this, because very rarely does a team get to perform as badly as Chicago and get results. Like, you have been treated to a season that I hope you are delighting in, because you probably won't be this bad next year.
I want people to go back and look at this game, or look at the game against San Diego, or look at the game against Houston, and look at all the incredibly high XG chances that each of those teams put up against Chicago's defense that didn't get scored. And I want you to come back to me, and I want you to lay out a detailed argument for why this was an expression of talent and not luck, for why those shots stayed out of the net. I want you to do it, because the burden of proof is actually on you guys.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
Because like, if a game like San Diego happened once, or a game like Houston happened once, maybe you could really say that, like, maybe there is just something about Donaldson's a tactical approach that is just able to do things that what we have for advanced data right now cannot capture. We talk about all the time how there are things that both XG, post-shot XG, possession value models, all of these things aren't necessarily capturing all of the sustainable, true skill that players and teams are producing on the field. Happy to admit that. But this is fucking ridiculous. There is clown car defending happening in Chicago against a lot of these chances. And like,
the without Sam Staub, the Chicago Red Star defense has been very bad.
And also, like, let's just set advanced data aside. Like, look at their performance over the last 8 games since the end of the Olympic break. They've lost 5 games. Like, even just by the most basic of statistics, they've been bad. And so I don't understand this idea that, like, somehow they've got, like, mental fortitude in spades. Like, you got a lot of results to go your way in the early part of the season, and you've continued to have some results go your way in the back end of the season, if we want to talk about San Diego and Houston. But this is a messy, shambolic team that does not actually seem to be producing anything tactically out of possession that would suggest to me that there is quality there that you can sustain. And that's the thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like, let's set data aside and just try and look at how they are using shape, how they are using movement, how they are using coordination off the ball, especially like in their own defensive third, to try and reduce the level of good chances that a team can have. And I don't see it. And also, season-long XG per shot data does not have anywhere near as high a correlation, from what I've been able to tell, as overall XG differential does in terms of playoff success and regular season success for that matter. So that tells me that as good as they have been on like generating high XG per shot and preventing high XG per shot on defense in the main, that doesn't feel sustainable to me. And like, again, Gotham is your likely playoff opponent. And if we go back and we look at, the best teams in the league, they've generally not performed very well against them.
Yeah.
So that has to like live at the top of mind for people. Like when they come up against really good teams, they do not put in good performances, and they're going to finish 6th, 7th, or 8th, which means they're going to face one of the top 4 in the league right now, whether it's KC, Gotham, Orlando, Washington, whoever it is. And look at the results that they've put up against those teams up to now. Like they lost 5-2 on the road to Kansas City, drew 0-0, but were handily beaten on the XG split at home. They lost 2-0 to Gotham over the weekend. They drew Gotham 1-1 at Red Bull Arena and also were on the wrong side of the XG split. They lost twice they lost to Orlando. They lost to Washington. They beat Washington in Chicago, but that's the one result that you can really point to here in this grouping, that they turned in a legitimately high quality performance. So how do you expect for them to be able to sustain this going forward? I mean, we talk about a quality chance a lot on the show. So that a quality chance is an XG value of 0.15 or higher. That's what you're kind of shooting for. Like the average XG per shot is 0.10. Almost all shots taken are 0.10 or below. So if you're taking shots at 0.15 XG or higher, you're taking good chances. A great chance, a really high quality chance, would be 0.33 XG or higher. Chicago has scored 13 goals on great chances where they're 0.33 XG or higher. 48% of all of their goals, their non-penalty goals, come from great chances. That is ludicrously high. And I'm not convinced at all that it's sustainable once they've come up against really, really strong opposition.
Yeah, I don't think anything that they've done is sustainable. It just happens to be sustaining.
Sure.
Right at this
I know.
point. Like, and those two things can coexist.
But too often people collapse those two ideas together.
Correct.
And they just assume that like because you have gotten good results up to this point means that you are A, good, and B, will continue to be good.
Yeah.
And for a team that is this living on such an extreme, for a team that is living at such extremes of statistical outliers in the way that Chicago is, especially considering that we are in a league this year where it is more stratified than it's been since like 2018, I do not know how they get past the first round. Like, and not even like by the skin of their teeth. Like, the only way that they can do it is like somehow hold their opposition to a 0-0 and go through on penalties. That's the only way I can see Chicago making it out of the quarterfinals. Because otherwise, like, a good team is not going to let them get there. A good team is not going to let Mallory Swanson run through open space the way that she so often can. And they're not going to give Ludmila good looks, or Jamise Joseph good looks, or Ali Schliger or Jenna Bike or whoever is up front get good looks. And then the defense is a joke. And
yet,
like,
if that Mal Swanson shot, if we're in the playoffs and that Mal Swanson shot clips off the inside of the post and goes in,
Yeah.
And that VAR call doesn't happen.
They win the game.
They win the game.
Yeah.
It is not, I suppose Chicago, if I'm a Chicago Red Stars fan right now, I have to understand and accept that my XG goal differential performance puts me in league with the Utah Royals and the Houston Dash and not with other playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
I have to accept that I'm going to be chugging Pepto-Bismol if I ever get a lead and losing, ripping out my hair and chewing my fingernails. But they're going to put you through hell, and they've put you through hell kind of already this season, but it's working out. And so just accept that your team isn't very good and it doesn't matter.
But also accept that like the odds are not in your favor to win in the playoffs. You could win in the playoffs, but the odds are not in your favor. So do not assume that somehow that you are a good team. Just don't assume it. You have gotten good results. That is all the Chicago Red Stars season means, is that you have gotten good results.
And enjoy it. Enjoy the ride, because so rarely does a team get to perform as poorly as Chicago and go to the playoffs.
Yeah. No shit.
And if you go mess some other teams up, enjoy the hell out of that. It's so funny. Like, laugh your asses off, because you should be laughing as opposed to having panic attacks, because this is sports and sports are fun.
Yeah.
The Chicago Red Stars are a not good team who are, as best as I can tell at this point, pretty impervious to results or to underlying numbers as far as results are. I mean, they have 10 wins.
Yeah, they've gotten lucky. It's not like through any measure of like skill or active agency that they have been impervious to results or to underlying production. They're just lucky.
It's just so fun. It like at this point, they are out here challenging the gods, and they are David and Goliathing. And currently, their slingshot, they get one rock off and it's not missing. But I'm taking Goliath almost every time if I'm going to the bookies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and no amount of because Goliath is going to win a fair number of these. And if I am wrong, hats off. I will laugh my absolute ass off if the Chicago Red Stars win the NWSL this year.
And I, by the way, would like to say that to any listeners who are Red Stars fans, or hell, any fans that like to see someone get a good comeuppance, I think we should put it to a vote about what I have to do if the Red Stars win their quarterfinal match.
Oh, I love this.
Think of a dare, think of a challenge, think of anything that I have to do. And we'll film it and we'll post it on all of our socials about what I have to do if the Red Stars win their quarterfinal game in the playoffs in November.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah. Because I am not as is our guiding principle on this show, are accountable. And so I will happily take accountability for this rant by God knows what. As long as it is not going to put me at risk of death, I will do it. Or serious bodily harm. Like, don't make me jump off a 20-foot building or something.
I am feeling a Claire's accessory Red Star ear piercing right now. I am feeling
interesting.
I'm feeling a Red Stars tattoo right on the tuchus. Fans, be more clever than me.
I'd rock that. I mean, I like the crest. I like the Red Stars crest. I could hang with that.
Chicago flag's a classic. Any Chicago team should always incorporate the flag. It's great.
For real.
Oh my God. Well, let's flip this around very quickly and just say, hey, Gotham, I really dig how you're rolling. Esther, on fire. She's been so good since the Olympic break.
Dig it. 0.17 XG per 96 before the Olympics, 0.52 since the Olympics. She has been a beast, an absolute beast. And there was a world where she could have had a hat trick. She had a couple of great chances in the first half that didn't go her way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she's been an absolute monster. And I'm happy for her, because it was a real struggle for her to get involved in the early parts of the year. And now it seems like she and Lynn Williams are the go-to attacking duo for Gotham. Like, Gotham's looking real good right now.
I am concerned in the case that Tierna Davidson sub is an injury that you need to worry about. But Gotham is just so deep. They continue to be putting together really solid, consistent results.
Mm-hmm.
I still think have the most talent of any team in the league. And I feel like we're starting to see that flexing its muscle.
Yeah.
This Gotham team we're spending all this time talking about the absurdity of the Red Stars because this Gotham team is the opposite of that. They are the team that their underlying numbers suggest. They are, an easy top 4 team in this league.
Yeah, I think this was one of the more effective. They're a team that presses quite well, but it doesn't always turn into final product. And I thought that like their level of pressure on Chicago was incredibly effective and actually did lead to a lot of good looks, especially in the first half. And if that is all kind of working and if that's all clicking in place, then I think it's a very positive sign. And it's wild that Ella Stevens had been so good for so long and now she's back to being a bench piece. But her quality isn't going anywhere. I mean, she provides the hockey assist, the through ball to Jessica Silva for Esther's goal at the death.
Yep.
And if Esther and Lynn Williams are clicking and Stevens is a piece that you can pull off the bench, then, woe be unto your opposition.
And Ella Stevens
Gotham in the postseason.
Ella Stevens wins the penalty. Like, she wins it with athleticism and with Gotham have lost the XG battle once since the Olympics to the Kansas City Current. And they've lost one game to the Pride, 3-0, which was a level XG battle.
Yeah.
Like, whether you care about the numbers or not, Gotham have been rolling and consistently rolling. They close out against the Orlando Pride. Who knows what we're going to see out of the Pride? And against the Utah Royals, I think Gotham stand a decent chance of claiming that second seed, which is really what they should be gunning for at this point. And I think that they are a terrifying prospect to come up against in the playoffs. Like, and the Chicago Red Stars, I've been talking about the team, the underdog team. I'll say this on the record. The Chicago Red Stars are not the team I am most scared to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They are the team I would be most afraid to be humiliated by.
Sure.
But they are not the team I am most scared to face in the playoffs. If I'm one of the top 4.
Final thing. Portland and Bay, final 2 playoff teams? Still? For you?
I can't believe that Portland is now one of the final 2 playoff teams, like as a statement. But yeah, I think that Portland and Bay are the playoff teams.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
I think the playoff race is basically done.
Yeah, I
know that that's not how Bay fans will feel. I know that that's not how Portland fans necessarily will feel. I would be reasonably surprised if, and it is Bay that would drop if Louisville makes the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, Louisville's got to beat Portland at home and San Diego on the road. Bay's
it's not doable, but it's hard.
Bay's got to lose to North Carolina at home and Houston on the road, or at least drop 2 points in there somewhere. That's a steeper hill to climb for Louisville, I think. So there you go. Them's the breaks. Right. Thanks, guys, for listening. I hope that we can all still be friends. Please be sure to rate, review us, follow us. Don't downrate us, please.
Evan feels his feelings and he feels them intensely.
Well, I'm right. I'm just right. I am correct. Like I am being correct.
Yeah.
Don't you love how I just said, please, can we still be friends? And then I just act like a dick again. But the thing is, I am correct. That's the problem with all of it, is that I am right. But that doesn't mean Chicago won't win the title this year. They might.
Yeah.
But I am right.
That's the one. Yeah. You got to put that out there.
I am right. And Chicago might win the title. But Chicago won't win the title because they're good. Because they'll win it because they're lucky.
It doesn't even matter if Chicago wins the title. All they need to do is win a playoff game, and Evan Davis will do something silly
Yeah, drop in your
to
suggestions.
memorialize this.
If you're a Patreon subscriber, drop in your suggestions on the Discord.
On Twitter, come for us on Twitter.
Yes, we will post to Twitter your ability to vote on what you would like to happen to me or what I must do if the Chicago Red Stars win their quarterfinal matchup in November. Follow us at XOwnGoals. That's the letter XOwnGoals on Twitter and all other social media platforms. We'll be posting this on Blue Sky as well. If you believe we've made an own goal, and I'm sure you do, if you like the Chicago Red Stars, you can email us at expectedowngoals@gmail.com. That's the letter expectedowngoals@gmail.com. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, subscribe for only $6 a month, where you'll get 4 bonus episodes every single month, as well as access to our Discord server and our semi-occasional live streams. We have Amy Lopez of the Our Football podcast coming on this week to discuss Liga MX Femenil, which we are very excited about. So that episode will be dropping on Friday. And in the meantime, keep an eye out for more statistical goodies that we drop in all of our social channels everywhere you get social media engagement. And we will speak to you on main feed on Tuesday. So we will talk to you then.
Goodbye. 5 stars. Like, subscribe.
Yeah.
Send humiliating possibilities for what will happen to Evan Davis's body or soul should the Chicago Red Stars
or both
win the playoffs.
Honestly, it'll be both.
Win a playoff game. Not even the playoffs, just a playoff game.
Yep. Bye, folks.
Bye.